Jean Darlin says they're using a mobile Scud launcher as the launch platform. Yes, we call that a transporter erector launcher. Is literally because this rocket is based off of, you guessed it, a ballistic missile, which is how they're, transported and launched, is on that Scud launcher. It's a solid fuel rocket. Missiles tend to be solid fueled because you want to build them and just have them be stable and ready for when you want to use them and not have a whole lot of preparation. Even though the US uses super chilled hydrogen and oxygen, it takes a lot of special equipment and pressurization and helium to maintain the pressurization. To just get all that going, solid fuel, you build it, it's ready. But the downside is you can't throttle it. Journey Started says, it makes me a bit nervous to see so many people standing so close to the rocket, this close to the launch. They must have a bunker. Correct, they probably do have a bunker. Squish Chin asks, what time is this launch happening? This launch is happening in about 54 minutes. I know I got started really early. But this is a super rare launch, and I do want a lot of people to get a chance to see it. And due to the nature of Twitch, it's just kind of best to chill out and wait for this to happen. If somebody understands Chinese, you're more than welcome to try to do this.
Without their organs or completely mold. So there were many theories, but also many descriptions of the creature. So some people would say, according to the news, that chupacabras was an extraterrestrial or an alien per se, or a giant bat. Hey Squinchin, welcome to the stream. I'm trying to do some Mexican spooky stories. I'm talking about chupacabras. So, as I was saying, some people described him as this half alien, half bat, maybe like a wild coyote with very pointy teeth, humanoid-like body, but not very tall, about 1 meter, 130, with a very long face, very big eyes, long teeth, very long tongue, and very dark tongue also, apparently. Some people say it had wings, and some people say it had fins. But some people say that its lower body was very furry, and the upper part was reptile-like. So another description is that it walks hunched,
Nonetheless, out of nowhere he just calls the N word, like the ER1 at the end, and
That's
then
mm-hmm.
it actually makes me sad to see this.
Huh?
After,
Hello?
yeah, I just had to collect myself. It kind of makes me break down when I had to talk the story.
Oh, that's okay. I understand.
Take your time, my friends.
That fucking sucks. Like, I don't understand like why people are so like, rude like that. Just it's so unnecessary. Um, yeah, that's fucked up. Um, so lemonade. I don't think you understand the point of it, right? Like, obviously people are going to criticize something like that harshly when it affects others like so strongly and when it reinforces systems of oppression. Like, duh.
Yeah, so he called us that, and we followed him off the bus, and it's sad to say it's like my brother just my brother he kind of has anger management,
Mm-hmm.
and he started yelling at him, but he hit him in the back.
Why was my mic muted? I was trying to mute the desktop audio.
Situation.
I don't know what they're talking about.
I don't know what to say. Are you close to your brother still? Or uh yeah. Okay, yeah, no. He's okay, he's hit you in the past.
It seems like these guys are off on crazy, random discussions. And she has like 60 viewers right now. Well, I was hoping to join their voice chat. My Discord. Why do you want my Discord? There's a command for it, but... This is my Discord. And I'm also in this Discord right now, because I'm trying to join this voice chat. Do I still have... Okay. Because it says here that I still have, like... I was playing Minecraft earlier. It had some of this tags still in it, but it's gone now.
I don't know if
I don't know what to do.
And where was that around? That's pretty good. The money. Yeah. Like it's just like a money war more than anything. That's what really is upsetting. And the fact that like there's a system in place like the UN that does nothing to even assist or help.
The UN doesn't do a lot of good things. They do a lot of bad things too. Like for instance, like they won't let a country get like vaccinations because of copyright laws, like bullshit like that.
Yeah, how dumb is that? Like humanity. Pretty good. Yeah, if you're talking with other people, I can join in and just like be a part of it. Like it doesn't matter. Yeah, Rain, get.
Sorry, sorry for cutting everybody short.
It's okay.
Yeah, can you guys, do you want to shout yourself out, whoever wants to?
I wanna welcome back Mika to Happy for calling the second region. It was really great. I was really getting loud because of the glitch. You made me feel better. Guys, follow my Twitch.
How's that guy doing? Sorry, I got you. I'm sorry.
Just follow my Twitch, Dino 530. If I get one follower, that will be nice. One follower from this, I'll work it. Thank you. I hope to see you around 50.
Okay. Does anybody else have a Twitch or something they want to shout out?
Yeah, so mine's a nigger one.
Hey!
Oh,
Oh my god, I knew it was a fucking troll. fucking asshole. I knew it because he was saying Abu Kabagda and I tried read news. Okay, now I get it. I hope not. Fucking asshole.
That's what I thought. I could be wrong.
Okay, well maybe I'll get banned. Who knows? Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. I'm pissed. Have a good night.
You shut it down. She shut it down. It's cool.
That sucked. Yeah.
I'm streaming right now. I was just looking to join in on a VC.
Oh, that sucks. I hope you don't get hit too if she gets banned for that.
Nah,
I had it muted.
Oh, that's good.
maybe, but like, she shut it down. Like, she said no. You know, what else can you do? Like, it seems fine to me. You should be allowed to, if that happens, shut people down, you know? Because then how can you talk to people?
Yeah. But I thought that was how Twitch works. Or like they changed the rules recently to not in the streamer's control, or at least if they try and do everything possible to prevent something like that, then it's not, they don't ban the streamer. But I could be completely wrong on that.
Well, it should be that way.
Yeah.
If anything, they should, like, you know, ban the person.
Yeah. I think they do that with, if it's a streamer on another streamer's live stream and they do something that violates TOS, that streamer gets banned and not the person that's hosting them. But I'm not sure if that's people who aren't streamers. That's crazy though. I didn't think that people still really did that. Like,
Well, the kids, it's kids, you know? Crazy
Yeah.
kids, you know?
because I remember like 2014 or 2015, there were like a bunch of YouTube channels that just did videos where they mess with streamers on Twitch, like really low view count streamers, usually kids, and they would like call in and tell them that they needed to fix the router or something, and they would get them to just destroy their laptop or something.
Oh, wow.
Just absolutely.
Jizzit, I was trying to join a VC. It's a long story. This is another politics streamer. And it's what's the GLHF pledge? I saw it next to your name.
And he's also apparently in Hassan's Discord channel. I don't know, so I kind of thought, oh, maybe this guy's legit if he's in that one, but I don't know. You can.
I just hope that that guy was removed from the Discord server as well, not just from the VC.
I don't know. Let me see.
If they remember what his username was and kick him out of here. I know GLHF stands for good luck, have fun, but what's the charity thing?
My name's Holden because I'm always holding hands.
No charity.
Texas. You could be Texas Hold'em.
Pledge. Isn't a pledge like a
His name
charity or a
His name Pledge,
drive?
okay.
Would these guys
I've
fucking...
had many years of
No, it's a good sounding name. It just
Jesus fuck.
I've been thinking about doing some streams and similar kind of thing to Pixie because Pixie kind of inspires me because she has such a simple setup and it makes me feel like I can do it. But Twitch politics scares the shit out of me. No, like horrible shit, man. Yeah, but like people get like fake like logs made of them and shit. Yeah.
A pledge of a promise, allegiance. What does that even mean?
Dude, earlier I got like 12 followers today because I was on Eva Una's stream or something and she was getting spammed
Why?
with some bots that were like people that were watching her streams were getting spammed follows. So I got like 12 followers that are like
I know what to do. I know what to do. This is what I need to do. This stream is a train wreck already. So I don't really care. I was playing Minecraft earlier. Like 2 hours ago. And I wanted to stream Cities Skylines, but some shit got fucked up with that, so... So I was gonna do a just chatting type of stream with some other people, but if you have any games in mind that you want to play, you want to play some Agar, Gizlet? You want to play some Agar with me and crash my new computer?
I don't think it's wrong, but I think it is like something that like white guys, especially white guys like in school do, and like that's how you like learn shit by debating, where like women are taught to learn shit a very different way. Like in high school, I remember like. Oh really?
Alright, that's the stream audio.
What was that? Oh, okay.
Alright. You didn't know that I got a new PC? I got that like 8 months ago. Yeah, I got a new PC, new webcam. The microphone I've had for a few years, but yeah, Linux and Windows. I'm on Windows right now because Linux has been having issues. Oh, you're going to sleep soon. Okay. Fine. Alright, I'm gonna unmute these guys and you can listen to them. Let's see what they're talking about.
All right, I'm leaving. All right, adios.
All right. See ya.
I'm just in this one channel with this random guy. I wanted to talk to these two. They're talking about Puerto Rico now. Who cares? Who cares about Puerto Rico? About them talking about the problems in Puerto Rico? Well, this streamer is from Puerto Rico. She's from there. So that's why it comes up in her channel a lot. There's not white people in Puerto Rico? What is that supposed to mean? There's white people in Florida. What's your point? I'm from Florida. She's from Puerto Rico. I think this guy's. I'm not sure if he's from Canada or where, but he's another streamer. Yeah, Floridians are weird. Yeah. Did you know that Canada just had their elections? Gislet, what do you think of Justin Trudeau? Yeah, basically I'm just waiting. You love that man because Obama endorsed him? You like Justin Trudeau? I didn't even mention Justin Trudeau. I just said that Canada had their elections. So what man? Is this guy even a sub? This guy's not even a sub. My ears like itching. Then you asked, what do you think? Oh, I didn't even remember I asked that. What do you think of, what's his name? Jagmeet Singh? I forget what the name of the other guy is. The conservative leader. Andrew Scheer. I think I like this guy. He seems pretty cool. This guy's quite the character. Yeah, Chislet. Your elections are weird because they're on off years. Virginia, Kentucky, Louisiana, New Jersey. It's just like a few states. You shouldn't be having elections right now. But you are, and I hope you're fucking voting. You better vote. Vote for the Libertarians again. I never said you were lying. I said your state was stupid. Yeah. Yeah, because you had your gubernatorial election in 2017, and you have 4-year terms for governor in Virginia, same as New Jersey. So during the in-between year, what would usually be your midterms is in 2019 instead of in 2018. But these 3 states have their main elections this year, and they have their midterms in 2017 and 2021. Joshua Cole, who only cares about women's equality. What about gay equality? One thing at a time, I guess. Who's Joshua Cole? I do not know who that is. Joshua Cole. Yeah, and you guys have delegates there because you're a commonwealth, not a state. Just have representatives like everybody else. Don't be weird. Joshua Cole. J. I don't see Joshua Cole here. I don't see Joshua Cole. Which district are you in? What district number? You don't know what district you're in? Are you sure it's a delegate race and not a Senate? I don't see him here either. Are they an incumbent or are they running? Are they not an incumbent? It's for Senate, delegate, supervisor, sheriff. Yeah. Yeah, it's a general midterm election. So everything besides president and Congress. But the reason it's bad for Virginia is because, look, in 2018, you guys still voted for Senate and House of Representatives. So instead of being able to vote for your governor and, well, not your governor, you would have done that in 2016. But voting for your legislature and your county and local offices, instead of doing that at the same time in 2018, now you have two separate election cycles and it just throws everything off. So I'm going to try to hop into this voice chat now.
Just moving slightly. Great. Totally unsettling at all. Totally settling. So
Hello?
yeah. Hi. Who's this?
This is Squish.
Hi, Squish. How you doing?
Good. I've been waiting for a little bit.
I'm so sorry. It was, well, you saw it.
Yeah,
It was
I saw the craziness.
Yeah.
So are you still going or are you trying to wrap up or?
No, I'll still go for more. What time is it right now? I can go a couple more hours. I have no shame.
No shame.
Yeah, just should I be doing stuff? Yeah, am I not? Yeah, that's fine. We're good. We're fine.
Oh, and there's the touring raid.
Hey, thank you, Thorin, for reading. I appreciate the read. So is there anything in particular you wanted to talk about?
I mean, I was just looking for a political sort of discussion. You're the only one that I saw that was on, so.
Yeah, I'm down for politics.
So you might have talked about this earlier, but did you watch any of Politicon from IRI?
I didn't because I am a bad citizen.
Well, it was pretty cool to be able to watch it live, because before in previous years you'd have to watch like uploaded clips on YouTube from whoever was there, but IRI got some pretty good videos.
Yeah, was there anything in particular that stood out to you? Just like
I mean, Kyle Kalinske stood out with all the events he was on a panel on the first day on Saturday, I think, for like how do we get along. It was him and Tommy Lauren, Tim Black, and another lady that I didn't know, and they were just kind of going back and forth from like left and right, stuff like that.
Yeah, Tommy. Interesting lady.
She actually wasn't that bad, like considering like she actually conceded some points to Kyle, on points of agreement. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of her like online persona is like a persona, you know?
definitely.
Um, yeah, sometimes I think I should just become a sellout and I'd be rich by
Yeah,
now.
go sign up
If I
to
wore a
work
MAGA
at
hat.
sign up to work at what's it called? Charlie Kirk's website. Um,
Turning Point USA.
yeah, Turning Point. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And speaking of Charlie Kirk, Kyle and him had a debate that got pretty heated on the second day, but it was pretty good.
I watched
Yeah.
that live. That was crazy. Kyle got really mad at some point,
I
so
know. I
you
was
could
like,
tell.
I'd never seen Kyle like that before. He got like
Yeah, me
heated.
either.
Got pissed. Yeah, I every time I think about Turning Point USA, I just think of like the memes on Reddit, the toilet paper USA.
I love
Yeah.
those.
And then what is it? I'm trying to think about yeah, apparently there was one time that something made it to the front page and I thought it was a meme, but it was actually said, and I was like, "Oh my god, what the fuck?" Like this is such trash. Honestly, I can't lie though. I don't even exactly know what Turning Point USA is. Is it just like a propaganda thing or?
From what I've heard, it's like just Trump defense 24/7, and that was reflected
Yeah.
in Charlie Kirk's debate performance. It was basically all the points of disagreement he had with Kyle were around his defense of Trump, no matter what, because he'd be able to go against like Hillary Clinton or some corporate Democrats on a very similar issue, and Kyle would point that out that, oh, if this was the Clinton Foundation instead of Trump's hotels, you'd be going after the Clinton Foundation, but you're defending Trump's hotels, saying, oh, this and that, and like he had some sort of defense that he would come up with.
It's a freaking cult by now. That's the thing. Like, I think I mentioned this on stream before, but I'll mention it again. So, around I think 30% of the population is very susceptible to fascism, right? And like that's like apparently like usually. And I always thought that was really weird. I was like, why are people interested in like fascism? Like that's kind of strange. Like what compels them to this? And I learned, at least like in the study I was reading, that the reason for this is because in like a fascist society, right, where you have, is that a fly? Okay, give me, oh fuck. Okay, I thought I was gonna kill it, but I didn't. Oh no, never mind. So yeah, so in a fascist society, when you choose somebody to be your leader, and they get to decide what's right or wrong, you don't have to think anymore, right? You don't have a moral compass or moral responsibility anymore. It's very alleviating, right? Just deciding like whatever this person says goes. So apparently, like that's one of the reasons people are susceptible to fascism, because it like alleviates them from a moral compass and from moral thinking.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I didn't know that there was a specific percentage that they've come up with for people being susceptible to fascism, around what you said, 30%?
Yeah, at least from what I read.
Yeah, that I could see that because there's always a chunk of the population that's like the most financially hurting, or like the economic situation's hurting them the most, so they're the most likely to turn to an authoritarian type figure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I've heard in people that are they're not necessarily against Bernie, but they don't think that he's going to get any of his policies passed, because there's this idea that so much of the population just doesn't care about politics, and they never will, and they just want to have people make decisions for them, and they just want to, you know, go down the lazy river of capitalism and consumerism, and they just want to mind their business, buying their products they see on TV ads or whatever. They don't want to get involved with running the government or making sure that they're well represented. So
yeah, life is just so much easier kind of when you assign like, I guess like fears or like your failure or whatever to like some unknown other, and just kind of hope that, or like continue to put faith into the people who have been betraying you for so long, right? It's so much harder to be like, wait a second, these people I voted forever actually don't give a fuck about me.
yeah, And I mean, I can't really blame anybody for thinking that with how little representation there is in Congress of the American people. And I think Congress regularly has an approval rating of less than 15%. So
Yikes.
I think I understand why people might feel that way, but I really don't think that there's not enough will there to support some of Bernie's policies. I think when people see that there are figures in the government that could represent the public very well, I think that'll give people a lot more hope in government, a lot more hope that their vote will be meaningful and it will go towards something. So
Well, I guess it really depends, right? Because if Bernie brings in like a blue wave, right, and a lot of people who get like elected to Congress are, I guess, like kind of progressive or blue, I don't think we'll have the same effect that Trump did, but maybe more leniency, right? Because like the thing is, like Trump wasn't technically a Republican, right? Like he wasn't really a Republican, and now Republicans are basically like kissing his ass.
yeah, Trump was just as much not a Republican as Bernie's just as much not a Democrat. They're both kind of
Yeah.
outsiders in their own way. They're both different forms of populist. One's just a liar, and the other's not.
Yeah. But then the problem with that is like, I think at the end of the day, like when it comes to like corporate interests, right? If they have to choose between Trump and Bernie, they will choose Trump every day.
Oh yeah, totally, hands down.
Yeah, so I think like a lot of these Republicans that like got in, had more of a duty, like, they were kind of like pro corporations, pro that. So it's not like what is it? They were more beholden to the corporate interests than to the people. And I feel like whoever gets like the majority of people who will get in next election cycle will probably still be in that same vein of being beholden to corporations instead of the people.
Yeah, that's something the Tea Party type people get to have their cake and eat it too, because they get to play on this real populist thing. They're anti the establishment, they're for the people, they're for the Republican base, but then the establishment knows they're going to still do their bidding once they get into office, so they get the support from both sides. The populist left is having to fight an uphill battle the whole way because they're only taking money from the people, not taking any big money. They're actually reforming the system from the ground up. So that's the big difference there.
Yeah, I just it's so funny because like so many people who are against like the Democratic Party, who are like who hate it because of like its corporate interests, which I totally understand, right? Kind of don't see that the same thing is still happening with Republicans. Yeah. They go like I remember having a conversation in a podcast the other day where they were like, oh yeah, but like at least Republicans are honest about it, and I'm like, that doesn't didn't really make it any better.
Yeah, I think I heard this might be a quote from Kyle Quincy, like a Republican is a wolf and a corporate Democrat is just a wolf in sheep's clothing. So at least the Republicans are sometimes upfront about it, like they'll defend corruption, they'll just say it, but the corporate Democrats have to kind of weasel their way out of it. Pete Buttigieg said recently, he doesn't want to unilaterally disarm himself by tying one hand behind his back, going into a general election by not taking corporate money.
Corporate Democrats.
But whereas Republicans will say, oh no, they'll come with some constitutional logic. Where they say, oh no, taking corporate money is defending our freedom. We have the right to take corporate money because corporations... Yeah, so at least they'll have some sort of thing they can come up with to defend it.
Yeah, no, it's bad. It's no either. I don't know. I think it's gonna be interesting in a few years when not to be like too abrasive or whatever, but when like boomers die, like how the Republican Party is gonna transform. And I think that's why they're trying really hard to indoctrinate young people, right? That's why they're trying really hard with the PragerU and the memes and the like little echo chambers online. Because like it's if they don't get like a bigger base soon, they're gonna go extinct,
Yeah, and the Democratic Party has already kind of evolved in a way because now you see basically every Democrat, even the corporate Democrats, they're socially liberal. You know,
Yeah.
they're fully with minorities and you know, the women's movement and all this stuff, and that's great. But on economics, on you know, fiscal problems, they're still very much in the center, if not somewhat center right. Um,
Yeah.
so the Republican Party, like, what demographic do they have to evolve into? The Democrats already have the corporate and socially liberal. The Republicans are corporate and socially, you know, authoritarian, or
Yeah.
they're conservative. So, um,
That's the whole thing about conservatism. It focuses on like sticking with the past, sticking with the past. And I just like, I can't get behind it because historically speaking, we only get better by moving forward, you know?
yeah, but
Um,
I'm just saying, like, what demographic is there for the Republicans to evolve into? Like, I think they're kind of, they've worked themselves into a corner, so to speak, because they don't really have anywhere to go. Their demographics are just going to
yeah.
die out because they're mostly, you know, older people, and you know, the I think most young people. I don't have an exact statistic, but they're overwhelmingly with the Democratic Party or independent.
Yeah, that's the
So
thing. I feel like if it comes honestly though, if conservatives like focused on basically trying to attract minorities, basically, if they weren't like so, I guess like racist, right? They would probably be like maybe even a majority, right? Because a lot of Hispanics, even like Asians as well. I'm not 100% sure
yeah,
of Black
yeah,
people,
definitely.
but
Um,
yeah, very conservative values there.
yeah, I think,
Um,
yeah, in states like Florida and Texas, that's the real problem. Is if only they weren't racist, they'd be able to get a lot of those Hispanic votes, because a lot of Hispanics are very, you know, religious or traditionally culturally conservative. So
yeah.
I think if the Republican Party wants to evolve anywhere, they should take a um, advice from the Libertarian Party,
Mm-hmm.
because Libertarian Party, they have that you know, fiscally conservative, but they're very socially libertarian and liberal. So
Yeah, that's the
that's one
thing.
route that they could take.
That's the thing. I also think what I don't think you realize is that the kind of gap for that is also closing and closing because second and third generations tend to be very liberal or like very much more liberal than their parents, right? And you can argue it's like an effect of seeing how how their parents have been treated and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
And having like the freedom to kind of go beyond like I guess like conservative values because like oh America everybody do what you want despite being in a culture that's so like restrictive, you know.
yeah,
um so yeah, so if the Republicans like don't jump on that, like because for me honestly I only see that as like basically the only opening left, kind of they're kind of like fucked in the future, unless if you know we can get into like the whole idea of rigged elections and stuff like that.
Honestly, I think that the Republicans are going to be fine. I don't know if this is just because I'm in the South and
Mm-hmm.
and of course,
Go for it.
of course, people down in the South are more than likely to vote for Republican. But like just from my own experiences, I don't know. This is with everyone that's South, but the group of friends that I had in high school, yeah, they were all completely the opposite of me politically, and I got into quite a few arguments with them uh, about a lot of different things. And I think that I think that the memes and stuff like that's really effective for the right, honestly, to get like young people in. And it's not even like policy; it's just like the reactionary, like anti SJW stuff that they'd like
Yeah.
love to latch on to, and it's just so easy for like for anyone that's not really that political to just grab onto that, and then that's their whole ideology, and that's like that's they just see that Donald Trump is like this guy that's gonna own the libs basically, and that's their whole ideology is just I want to own the libs as much as possible, and I don't care anything about anything else.
yeah.
And
No,
that's
I
yeah.
I completely agree in that sense. However, I'd be more inclined to like completely agree if it wasn't for the fact that I feel like we're seeing now like a online counterculture to that, even though like technically the Republicans are a counterculture, but you know what I mean. Like for example,
Yeah.
like more liberal streamers, liberal YouTube channels popping up, things like that, right? I think the right definitely got like a head start when it came to like I guess like this online immersion And it doesn't surprise me, right? Because since a lot of conservative views, like in publics in like cities and stuff, or in places that are like more well populated or not like exactly welcomed, it wouldn't surprise me that they would try to find like echo chambers online to like reaffirm those beliefs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, I think it really depends if we have like or if there is like an effective liberal counter movement online, whether the Republicans will be able to like get a stronger base like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
Mhm.
if there's any portion of like the youth vote that the Republicans are going to pick up, it's mostly people that haven't voted before, low information voters,
Mhm.
because it's easier to sway somebody that's kind of neutral or in the middle. So I see the Republicans might be able to pick up some young people using their memes and their, trolling the libs. But a lot of the people that start out and they get pulled towards the left or towards liberal politics, they're not going to be easily swayed to the right. It's going to be people going from the right to the left, if they go to the right at all. So.
Mhm. I mean, definitely, I've thought about like creating liberal meme channels and stuff like that.
We need it.
Because yeah, no, I actually do think we need it because so many of these things like they're not even that good memes. They're like low effort memes, right? But I feel like, let me put it this way. When you're a young person, I'm a young person, right? But I mean, like when you're like a kid or whatever, like 12 or 13, and your sense of humor is developing, and your like hormones are going all around, right? I feel like for that demographic, shock humor is very appealing to them, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's like something like, oh, edgy, cool, different, like a little bit rebellious even. So I definitely feel like they're, I guess, the most susceptible to it. And then when you just have like those reinforcing like type of jokes or type of media content going over and over, then you kind of like, as you grow, you're more inclined to settle into that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, I feel like if there were, I'm not even joking. I feel like if there were more meme channels that were like liberals, like kind of making fun of Republican talking points or how silly they were, I do think that could be like an effective counter to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think that the reason I think one of the main reasons why the right is so good, or like they're so good with their memes. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the reason why I think they're so good is because a lot of the main points on the right are just very simple. But if you went to like, I think I heard someone say this somewhere else. I don't know who, but if you went to like, if you want to give them the counterpoint, it's like a bunch of bullet points, like to respond to like a racist argument. It's they just say, like, we can't let these people in because they're going to kill everyone because they're immigrants or whatever. And then you have to respond with, all the facts, all the data. You have to be like, okay, well, actually immigrants are less likely to commit crime than people who are actually already in the country, all this other stuff. And that's just not like, it's harder to make those things hit when you have someone just posting memes that just say like, build the wall. That's such
Yeah.
like, it's so concise.
So the liberal arguments just take a bit more thought to understand them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
They're not as blunt and
yeah.
just like, right on the nose and easy to process quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, so for low information voters, that might be effective. So.
Yeah, and it's also just yeah, it's also what I was gonna say. Yeah, not just is it like easier to process, but it goes back to, I don't want to say like primal fear, but kind of that, right? Like, oh, it's the other. Like, don't think about it anymore, right? It's just like, oh, the other that's threatening you. Oh, the immigrant, the person who's like black, right? And it's just like a lot easier to kind of like lean back into that fear and not think even more.
Yeah, it's like a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think definitely having a liberal force on online, social media and stuff, trying to reach out to other youth and get them involved in a way that clicks with them. But on the left, you definitely have to be careful because you can go after Republicans, that's fine, but once you start going after the Democratic establishment and corporate Democrats, watch out for that rubber stamp that's going to tell you you're a Russian bot or a Russian troll or whatever.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Especially like, okay, don't get me wrong, like definitely right now I'm in the boat of anything but Trump. However, I kind of hate when people like claim that like so passionately. Just because like that's think about the reason why Trump won in the first place, right? Is because everybody was like, oh, a corporate Democrat, of course they're gonna win compared to like this crazy outlier dude, blah 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 blah. And it's like, okay, like you're gonna get fucked either way, right? Either by like corporate Democrats or by like this crazy asshole racist dude. And even though you can claim that like one is worse than the other, which it is, being like, oh, you have to vote for this person no matter what, you have to vote for a Democrat no matter what, kind of like leans into the idea that like, oh, it doesn't matter if they don't give a fuck about you as long as it's not Trump, and it's like just a little bit frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the points that we need to be making clear to new voters, low information voters, that things weren't perfect the day before Trump was elected. So you can't just simply be against Trump and call it good.
Somebody's saying, why do you think Trump is racist? I would argue that there's like a couple of things for this. For me, like the most like clear example kind of is how Puerto Rico was treated. He constantly lies about how much aid was given to us. His actual, like, don't get me wrong, Puerto Rico's administration did like mishandle the money, but it was not $91 billion. It was so much significantly less. I don't understand why he keeps repeating that stat when it's just like a literal lie, and there's so many other things you can like complain about Puerto Rico. Not to mention the FEMA supervisor who was in charge of Puerto Rico's aid, who was assigned from the Trump administration, also stole a bunch of money. But no, is that racist though? What's racist is the fact that, or what I think was based on racism, right, was the fact that it took a significantly longer amount of time for us to get aid than like Texas and other counterparts. Constantly like basically like demeaning us and like saying that, oh no, like Puerto Ricans don't know how to handle the money, blah 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 blah. Not treating us basically with the same level of urgency. Yeah, I have a very hard time thinking about any other reason that he would treat us like that.
He doesn't have it. He doesn't have any casinos in Puerto Rico, does he?
Nope.
Oh, I wonder if that has something to do with it.
And then also like the whole build the wall shit is like such a obvious like dog whistle. Like, let's be honest. If you really want to stop illegal immigration, you should focus on the visa issue where the majority of illegal immigrants come, right? Not through building like a freaking wall that would be like super expensive, take forever, and like need like constant repairment for when the majority of illegal immigrants don't even come from there, right? But no, it's okay because they're all violent rapists, right?
Yeah.
Maris, are you serious? You wanna red pill me on why the Iraq War is good?
Something that I had thought of talking about is in a few states there are elections coming up. Actually, in just a few days, like a week or so, in Virginia, Louisiana, Kentucky. And I was just saying, oh, by the way, I'm live right now as well. I had somebody in my chat, one of my mods is from Virginia. He was talking about how he has the elections coming up. And I haven't really heard anybody talk about this, but it's really bad for those states when they have elections in these off years, 2017, 2019. Because, say, in Virginia, they voted for the Senate and Congress, House of Representatives last year in 2018 with everybody else. But now they're having to vote for all of their state offices and county offices this year. So, obviously, the voter turnout is going to be a lot lower when you split it up like that. So, does anybody have any thoughts on that?
That seems like really effed up. Have it done like that. Honestly, so where you have it in an off year like that, yeah, you'd have to really do a lot of what's the word? I can't believe I just outreach to like get people to know that the election's happening.
Yeah, because most people aren't even paying attention to politics in off years
Yeah.
whatsoever. And I'm not sure. I haven't looked into why these states have it this way. Like, I don't know if they, at some point, were on the same schedule as the other states, but like they had a special election or like somebody died and it threw everything off and they just didn't get it lined up again. But yeah, it's, you know, when you're having your governor election in 2017 and voter turnout's like less than 40%. I mean, it's not a big question why.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal to have a election that at that size or like an office like governor. I think that's a pretty big deal.
And even some states have their big elections in the midterms. So let's say they have their governor election in 2018 instead of 2016 or 2020. My state, Vermont, and also New Hampshire, we have elections for governor every 2 years. And some people argue against that because it doesn't give the governor as much time to do their job because they spend more time campaigning. But I think it's net positive because when you have more frequent elections, they're more accountable to the public. And also it gives us more chances to, you know, have the voters get out and have their voices heard. So
Yeah, I just special election or not, I think it's crazy how in the U.S. it's not a federal holiday. That
Yeah.
yeah,
so decentralizing.
that Tuesday election day should be totally like nobody has to work.
Just go and vote.
Yeah.
Literally, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fucked up. And obviously, like, they do it on purpose, but that's even more fucked up.
Yeah, that coupled with I don't know if you've heard of Andrew Yang's plan for democracy vouchers or basically paying people to donate to the candidate that they favor. If they could do something like that where, you know, they have a paid day off, like by federal law on election day, that would be a huge boost probably to voter turnout. Because so many people, like, they probably want to vote, but they just have to fit it into their tight schedule. They might be working 2 or 3 jobs. You know, transportation, they have to get to the polls. They might have not registered within time to do, you know, early voting or absentee voting. So.
Yeah, no, and like think about it really makes me so frustrated. In Puerto Rico, it's a day off. No school, no nothing. All you have to do is go vote.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why Puerto Rico has a very high voter turnout, despite, you know, and you think a higher voter turnout would mean less corruption, but not in Puerto Rico. But at least we have a high voter turnout anyways, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my state, Vermont, we actually have a lot of, we don't have like paid days off on election day, sadly, but we have a lot of other measures to increase turnout and make it easier to vote. Like, we can register to vote on the same day as the election. So if you've never voted before, you just show up to the polls with, like, I think one piece of ID. They add you to the list, they hand you a ballot, and you can go vote right then and there.
Yeah,
and
that sounds effective.
there's like a couple weeks worth of absentee voting. There's like a long period for that. So there's very few excuses to not vote here.
I have a question.
Yes.
So in Puerto Rico, people go all out on election day. They get the flags of the party. They play the music or anthem or whatever of the party's commercial. They drive around. They beep horns. Is that how it is in the States?
It's not how it is in my state, but I wish it was like that. Like for somebody who likes politics like me, like, yeah, that'd be awesome. Have a party on election day.
Yeah, literally, it's crazy. I'm watching like all the different cars basically with their flags of the state.
Yeah.
The party they're for.
The parties here don't even have flags. They just have like a logo or something. You know, you get your buttons, but that's not really. There's no really like partying that happens here. I mean, maybe like, you know, for campaigns they'll have like election night parties that people with the campaign can get into and stuff, but
I'm trying to think about what else in Puerto Rico that happens on election day that's like similar. No, I don't. Other than what I just said of the caravans and stuff like that, and I guess like people drinking. Yeah.
On election
But to be,
days, I'm always. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, to be fair, Puerto Ricans find a reason to party over anything.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like alcohol is
we
a major. They can find an excuse to drink. I mean,
we
that's the same as here
celebrate
in the States.
we celebrate 4th of July, and it's not even like we're not we're not. It's not our Independence Day,
Yeah.
even though we're technically part of America. But you know what I mean.
Does
Um,
I'm curious, real quick. Does Puerto Rico have any sort of day of observance when Spain was no longer like controlling them? Because I know it's not really independence because they shifted hands from Spain to the U.S. But do they have any sort of
So
observance day of that?
here's a fun fact. When Puerto Rico is taken by the U.S., technically our status was similar to like what Canada and the U.K. technically have, right? Um, so it's like it's like an independent nation basically, but it's like it was like a commonwealth kind of. Do you understand where I'm coming from? What I'm
Yeah.
trying to
So
say?
they didn't have a war for independence,
No, we
similar to
basically
Canada.
no, we had our own or I guess maybe a better statement would be like Australia and the UK. But basically, we had it was only for 2 weeks though before the US took over. But we had just gotten like full independence. And even though we were technically loyal to the Spanish king, not really, we were basically like functioning as our own. And then the US came and take over. There's a day I forgot what it was. But people there, like I guess the closest thing would be like Grito de Lares, um, which was more of a event that happened that was like against like U.S. imperialism, and that's like what some people celebrate, or a lot of people remember it because like it was it was just a
Yeah,
big
that
event.
sounds like a good holiday, like an anti-imperialist holiday.
Yeah.
I
Um.
wish there was some
Yeah.
more of that same spirit up here, but there's a lot of flag, people that worship the flag on the right that are like,
Mhm.
they just go right along with the American imperialism because, the U.S.
Yeah.
can do no wrong.
Yeah, there's so many people who are like, "Aren't you lucky that the U.S. is like saved you guys?" And I'm like, I'm like, say like,
Define saved.
yeah. It's just there's so many problems that arrived because of U.S. intervention, and I feel like a lot of people like don't know or don't even know about U.S. intervention all throughout South America and how many basically innocent lives were lost in a result of that.
Yeah, and do you think that there's some way that American intervention could have actually genuinely helped Puerto Rico? Because, I think with like military stuff, like if Puerto Rico actually needed defense and the U.S. was there and could defend it and could provide resources in that way, like that would be a positive thing. But
So here's a complicated thing, right? A lot of like a lot of Puerto Ricans basically have volunteered to be part of the U.S. Army, like a good part of our population. Every time there's a major war and stuff like that. I think even in World War I, and I might be wrong, so don't quote me on this. But even then, we didn't actually get our citizenship until the U.S. got the Virgin Islands, and that was because I think it was the Queen of England who had technically control of the Virgin Islands told them the only way we'll give you these islands is that if you give them citizenship, and like it would look really bad in the U.S. if they didn't give citizenship to Puerto Rico despite having them for longer, and and how do you call it, having people fight in the war there, right, for the United States, but then give citizenship to the Virgin Islands. They
yeah,
like indirectly pressured.
I never made that connection because didn't the U.S. acquire the U.S. Virgin Islands in, was it 1917?
Yeah, around
So that's
there.
like less than 20 years after we got Puerto Rico. So I guess it was still fresh on people's minds.
Yeah, so I guess like what I was like trying to get with this is that you can talk about like US like protecting the island and stuff like that, but I feel like historically speaking, there hasn't really been much focus on Puerto Rican, I guess like Puerto Rican invasion, right?
Yeah, there hasn't been much need for defense, but I guess
Yeah,
with things like, hurricanes, like those are relatively
yeah, no.
frequent, and those are real things that need to be addressed by not so much like military, but like National Guard, I guess.
That's a completely fair point, and I think like that was after Hurricane Maria, I thought we were fucked. I thought nobody would care. I thought like that end of Puerto Rico basically like we're really fucked, and I was very outstanded and touched by how many people who are part of the U.S. Rallied together and really seemed to care and really wanted to help. So I think that was like the first time I felt actually like okay with the idea of becoming a state, because I was just blown away by people's like how much they cared,
Yeah.
um so yeah, but it's also like complicated because like again, even though we got like a lot of aid, a lot of it was lost in corruption. The head of FEMA or whatever, that was in charge of Puerto Rico, which was federally appointed, stole a bunch of money as well. um
Yeah. I think the
yeah.
source of all of this is they just simply don't have representation in Congress, and they're just seen as sort of in limbo. Like, I feel like, having military and resource aid from the U.S., just like every other state has, from the federal government, having, what's the, does Puerto Rico receive any funding from like federal taxes, like directly, like funding to go into Puerto Rican programs?
So we do receive some federal taxes or like federal grants and stuff like that. But I don't know, it's like an overall like complicated situation. We have a lot of money in debt, but nobody really knows where it's from. So we keep like trying to get it to be audited. But the people in power never want that, right? Because that would show a lot of corruption probably.
Yeah, I
Um,
really feel like having full state status would be able to, have people go in there and and I'm not saying have people from the U.S. mainland, have the right people that are in Puerto Rico to be able to access these different parts of the Puerto Rican government, and do audits and figure out the source of the debt, figure out what Puerto Rico needs from the U.S., if anything. So
Yeah. I definitely feel like we could get more respect, I guess, because right now we have a fiscal board that doesn't really care about Puerto Rico. They care more about like the people, the U.S. investors who are worried that they're not going to get their money back. Um, so they want to place like a bunch of austerity measures, close down a bunch of schools, which they did, by the way. And then the Secretary of Education, who was in charge of that and responsible for that, and part of the board as well, got arrested by the FBI for embezzling money. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
right? So we have, so like even the spore that was supposed to come in and that everybody was like kind of mad about because it was like imperialistic. Even the spore that was supposed to come in and try to put stuff together, had people doing the opposite, So I definitely think that that would be like, I guess, like a perk of statehood, of feeling like we have like, um, an equal say just like other states. But I don't know. I feel like our vote would still be too small to get rid of federal laws that are holding us back. I feel like our vote would still be like too small to yeah, to, well, not even too small, right? But like in the sense of, we want to, if Puerto Rico's like, it's an island, it couldn't trade with other nations nearby, or like, other countries easily. And yeah, there's just like a lot of federal restrictions on that.
yeah. I think having um, it would be like 5 or 6 actual voting
Mm-hmm.
members of Congress, having 2 senators that have a lot more leverage over the federal coffers and where a lot of this money goes, because a lot of the programs that would be helping Puerto Rico could help other states, so they wouldn't just be Puerto Rico, you know
Mm-hmm.
isn't just isolated in its issues. There's issues that might be affecting other parts of the country, and
Mm-hmm.
having these regulations from the government be able to go in and regulate the business, like you said, investors
Mm-hmm.
that might be in Puerto Rico, because I'm sure a lot of them are just like taking advantage of Puerto Rico and not
Yeah.
really actually helping the economy there. So having
Yeah,
statehood
that's
status would allow like businesses and stuff to go in there and invest and do like ethical business on the island instead of just, representing, their company back on the mainland. So
Yeah, that's a really big problem Puerto Rico has. That a lot of there's basically, and it's our government's fault as well, right? We're kind of like a low key tax haven. So there's people who come here and then live here for 6 months, but don't bring really any of their businesses here, or don't bring any basically don't contribute to Puerto Rico's like economy at all except living here. Um, and they basically don't have to pay taxes at all. Um, so that's another thing. And that only applies to Americans, basically. So the Puerto Rican population gets screwed.
yeah,
So yeah, that's the thing.
and I'm sure a lot of this, I'm sure the Virgin Islands have a lot of the similar problems with this. So giving them statehood status. I've thought about this because Virgin Islands has a much smaller population. I think I've actually even asked you about this before, but what if the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, I know they're very different communities, very different.
One?
Yeah, become one and join the U.S. as a state together. Would they be
I
able
don't think
to
that would
work with each other with that, or that wouldn't work?
No, Puerto Ricans are very I don't say territorial, but just we know nothing really about the Virgin Islands, and I think the Virgin Islands have very limited information on us. I feel like it would also just create like I guess like bad power structure, because I'm pretty sure our maybe I might be wrong, so I'm afraid of saying this, but I'm pretty sure our population like overwhelmingly is bigger than the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, so the Virgin Islands would be just kind of joining in with their whatever, a couple 100,000.
Yeah, so then that would be bad for the Virgin Islands because when it comes to situations that have to do with them, we would kind of like, I guess, overpower, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, they wouldn't have their own governor
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, and they'd have to share the congressional delegation.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like if it's just Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands is still getting screwed, like I don't like that. But can Virgin Islands be a state by themselves? They would be the least populous state by far, even less than Vermont or even less than the District of Columbia.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a hard topic because like yeah, we could theoretically like join forces and stuff, but I just feel bad for the Virgin Islands because they'd still get screwed over because they wouldn't really have fair representation because Puerto Rico would just be so overwhelmingly larger.
Well, here's something, because I think it would in the net benefit Virgin Islands because they become part of a state with full representation, and over time, I think the demographics between the two might kind of blend together. There might be some crossover, so the interests of one would fall in line more with the interests of another. It'd become more of like a mutual thing over time if they were together, voting for the same representatives, voting for the same governor, stuff like that.
I'm not necessarily sure because like Puerto Ricans have no incentive to really go to the Virgin Islands at all, and if there was, I'm pretty sure they would just choose the U.S. like a U.S. state over that. Even if Virgin Islands does technically become a U.S. state, I mean like a mainland. Yeah, so I could see maybe Virgin Island people going to Puerto Rico maybe, but I do not see Puerto Rican people going to Virgin Islands, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And I mean, at the same time, then you would have, if you're going to do it for Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands, you also have Guam and Northern Mariana, which I believe have a lot similar, between the two. Their demographics are very similar, but I think if you go back enough in history, I think there was like a war or something between Guam and the rest of the Marianas. And they kind of dislike each other. I don't know if that's still the case, but it'd be good if they could join the U.S. together as just one big Mariana. Like imagine if Hawaii was split, like you had the big Hawaiian island as one state, and then the rest of Hawaii as a separate state. That wouldn't really be good.
Oh, interestingly enough, like Hawaii shares a lot of our problems as well when it comes to federal regulations.
So even once you get statehood status, it's not all over with the problems. Yeah.
That's why I was like kind of more inclined towards independence, because like Hawaii has statehood status and they still suffer from a lot of the same regulations we do,
I
and so
think,
does Alaska, but
yeah,
they're less populated as well.
yeah, I think there's still problems that can be addressed within, like while they're still within the U.S. There are still problems that need to be addressed because I know that like native populations in Hawaii haven't been, they're still not very well represented with their interests over like having land sovereignty right sovereignty. I can't say this word.
Sovereignty.
Sovereignty rights.
For once, I'm the one who can pronounce the word. Holy shit.
Yeah. Have you heard about any of this?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because in Puerto Rico, okay, so basically, even though I'm trying to think about what to say, so you got Hawaii, right? And in Hawaii, the way that natives worked when it came to like land and property is that they focused a lot on oral contracts, right? So things were done more in like an oral fashion instead of like written, right?
Yeah.
But because of Spanish colonization, a lot of people had basically like some written deed or some written form of claiming the land in Puerto Rico. So when the U.S. came to Puerto Rico, they had a lot harder time taking and redistributing the land, even if the government was all like basically U.S. dictators, um, because people had like kind of could argue in court because for their because they had like written deeds and stuff like that. While in Hawaii, it was more like, oh well, you have no real proof that this was your land, so
Yeah.
sucks to
And
suck.
I'm not sure what the process is for determining, like in Hawaii, like what becomes a federal land, like whether it's like a natural protection area or whatever it might be. If it's federal land, what determines that it's federal land and it's not land that belongs to the state government, which is more beholden to these native populations?
Yeah, it's hard. I remember reading an article about Mark Zuckerberg basically taking a bunch of native land.
In Hawaii?
Yeah, it was fucked up. And it went back to that's where actually I learned about the whole stuff of oral versus written contracts, and like how is it harder for our native Hawaiians to take claim of their land because that's just not how they did things.
Yeah, so they're already at like a legal disadvantage.
Yeah, major legal disadvantage.
Holden, I don't know if you had anything to. He's been kind of quiet.
Hi.
Yeah,
So I
there's
don't
not
want to
much-
leave him out of this.
No, it's fine. I don't really know much about Puerto Rico and all that kind of stuff, so I was just kind of like, I'll just listen.
I mean,
Also,
neither.
I find it really interesting anyway. So,
I mean, I don't know that much either, but
well, you were asking all the questions that I was gonna ask, probably.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about anything else that's interesting about Puerto Rico when it comes to that type of stuff.
I have a question for you. How big of a deal is it that the mayor of San Juan has endorsed Bernie?
Not that big of a deal, honestly.
Not that big of a deal. So could you see Bernie winning the Puerto Rico primary?
I could, yeah, no, I could definitely see him winning the Puerto Rico primary, but just Puerto Rico, like it's very hard when people compare Puerto Rico to the U.S. when it comes to Democrat and Republican, just because like our party basis is so different, you know. It's it focuses on basically statehood and Commonwealth, and that's basically the main thing that they are different.
Yeah.
Literally every single time somebody gets elected, all that really changes is that the contracts get changed from different hands, right? The government contracts.
Yeah, because the power to determine statehood lies with Congress, correct?
Yes.
So no matter what they do, and they can't have a voice within Congress because.
Well, they have a voice. But
Yeah,
they
they
can't
a
vote.
voice that can't vote. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no real like path for them.
Yeah, basically.
So it
That's
has
why
to-
I'm saying.
That's why we have to have the people in the U.S. already in states that are represented to stand up for Puerto Rico and push
Yeah.
that movement up here.
Yeah, either that or Puerto Rico has to have an independent revolution, right?
Well, yeah, what we should do is have, one final, because I'm sure Puerto Rico's had votes on this, for decades,
Yeah.
but have like one final vote, similar to Brexit, where we give them an ultimatum and the U.S. Congress goes with whatever they decide, statehood or independence.
This is the thing. That's never gonna happen because if we gain, since Puerto Rico is like a little bit split on the issue, right? Like since it's really close to 50-50, if the states decide that Puerto Rico is independent, or if like there's like a 51% vote for independence, you're gonna have like 49% of the population exiting to the U.S., right? And they're legal citizens, and you can't take away somebody's birthright citizenship without without it becoming like without it directly contradicting the Constitution, right?
Okay, well, that could be a referendum on current status or statehood. Would that be a good option?
But that's yeah, but yeah. But the thing is, if it's current status, and we're left with all the problems that we still have now,
Well, that's what you bring up to voters before they vote in the referendum.
Yeah, but then that's the thing. Like the reason why people are not, yeah, like you kind of have to understand that when people in Puerto Rico, the reason why they're not completely sold on how do you call it, on statehood is because of the same things that I just listed here, right? Like the same problems of like, well, Hawaii is the state, and we basically have like the same problems, and like what about our culture? Even though I feel like we'd still sustain our culture, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I feel
yeah,
like those
so
are all like real things to be worried about if you look at Hawaii, but I just think we should have a more positive view on like we should be able to fix these things both in Puerto Rico and in Hawaii and in Alaska, or there's even problems still with the native reservations out in the west not being very well represented, either in their states or with the federal government. So it's not just a problem that Puerto Rico alone is facing. So it's something that we need to address for all of these places together. And Puerto Rico having their, getting their foot in the door, becoming a state, would have more sway on being able to address these problems further, I believe.
Yeah, if there's any one good thing, I guess, is that since Puerto Rican pride and nationalism is like so widespread across different states, it is like definitely possible, which is really weird because you don't see this for other states, right? Like if New York has a problem, you're not going to necessarily see I don't know, Texas, Arkansas, Massachusetts, and Wyoming come together, right, and defend and try to pass forward for something that helps New York. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
But for Puerto Rico's situation, there could definitely be a possibility that officials in like Florida and New York and Texas and many other places as well, wherever Puerto Ricans are, would be pressured to act when it comes to voting for Puerto Rico.
And in terms of like, if there's a question of whether Puerto Rico would lose its sort of identity or its pride as its own entity, I guess. I mean, you can look at Texas. Texas is full of pride, and they haven't been their own country in like 150, 160 years. So
Puerto Rico might be the only place that's more prideful than Texas.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a quick question.
What?
I left my phone charger, and I need a phone charger. Does anyone have an iPhone charger? My phone's at like 30, or that's at like 28.
James, you little weirdo. Go away.
What? No, I love you.
Yeah, sure.
As always, $5 on Venmo for fee pics. Okay.
Oh my God, James. Yeah. He's not my brother, but he might as well be.
Yeah, is there anybody else in the chat that wanted to join in?
Yeah, so
that's all I thought of to talk about was like the upcoming elections in those few states, and
that's fine.
Yeah, so I guess one last thing. If there's anybody here in the states of Virginia, New Jersey, I think Louisiana, Kentucky. Make sure you go and vote next week, I believe. November 5th. Oh, and Mississippi. And Mississippi.
That's important. Give me one. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining, guys. I really appreciate it. It's always fun talking to y'all.
Yeah, that was fun. Are you wrapping up now?
Um, I'm deciding whether or not I want to join Destiny stream and talk. Not because I don't know what to talk about. I kind of do though, because I want to like talk about egoism maybe, but I'm not sure. So yeah.
I will say if IRI is doing his roundtable again next Sunday, you should definitely join in. I'm gonna try to get in on that.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, that's a really good sort of political discussion space that he has over there.
Yeah, I mean, I love how Twitch's little liberal community is growing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it has its own sub groups. Like there's the Hassan group and the Destiny group, and it seems like Mind Waves is getting pretty big now too. I remember when his channel was tiny.
Yes, it was, how do you call it? It was a very interesting...
Rapid growth.
Hello? Every time I... Hello?
You're cutting out.
Uh-oh.
Why do I always cut out? I'm gonna cry.
I was just saying that Mind Waves had very rapid growth in his channel.
It's interesting little podcast, you know?
All right. Well, if you're wanting to get over and like raid somebody, I'm about ready to wrap up my stream. I've been going for like several hours.
Bro, you crazy.
But yeah, I'll try to be on RRI's roundtable next week. So yeah.
I'll check. See who it is. I'll ask him. I'll be like, "Yo, you got space?"
Yeah, he'd love to have you on. He knows you.
I've seen it before. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see if I can actually focus for once in my life. And finish my work. I really don't want to work right now. I'm literally trying to do whatever I can to procrastinate.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
It's the hard mood.
All right, well, I'll get out of here for now. So good night, everybody. And it was fun talking to you, Pixie and Holden. Are you a streamer, Holden, or are you just hanging out?
I'm a streamer every once in a while.
All right, cool.
And when you're in the mood.
I mean, that's how it is. All right, I'll talk to you guys some other time.
All right, see ya.
So I'm like debating. I'm like, should I not? I don't know what to do.
What is you're thinking of going on Destiny stream?
Yes.
Six hours. Yikes. 2 hours of that was just me messing around with stream stuff, OBS not working. So yeah, I'm gonna end it here. That was a long stream. I hadn't streamed for like close to a month. But yeah, I'll try to be on IRI's roundtable next Sunday. I was on it a couple weeks ago. It's a good political discussion space, and it's good for outreach for a small channel like mine. So all right, I'm going to get rid of that. So, yeah, that's it for now.